Greetings, all you Tosks and Hunters, Rikaris, Waddies, Innis and Null Innis, and welcome to Undeclared Bajor, a Star Trek Deep Space Nine rewatch. My name is Fletcher. About to say hello is Data.
Hey.
Today we're going to recap, discuss, and rate Season 1, Episode 17, The Foresaken, alternate title, The Odovator.
What I came up with was the Ambassadorial Squad.
Also good. It's just that the word Forsaken looks so much like a different word when I look at it.
Well, I think of something much more dramatic. I mean, I get what they're going for because you can call like both the computerized entity and Odo and Troi. You could all say they're kind of Forsaken.
Sure,
but it sounds so dramatic. Who's
Troi forsaken by?
You know, she's all sad. She doesn't have friends or whatever.
I don't know if that's true.
No, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's not true.
Anyway, a quick note on spoilers. In case our rewatch is your first watch, expect full spoilers through this episode and an appropriate minimum of minor spoilers for later in the series. Oh, but I didn't come up with a fun fake spoiler. But nothing too big.
Like when the puppy comes back and saves the day.
Yeah, exactly. When the computer puppy storyline pays off. This episode originally aired May 23rd, 1993. It was written by Don Carlos Dunaway and Michael Piller. Story by Jim Trombetta. And directed by our friend Les Landau.
Yeah.
I was trying to do some research on Les Landau, trying to find out if he's related to Martin Landau.
How'd that work out?
He seems to be a member of kind of an old school Hollywood family. Like his dad and several of his siblings are producers and stuff, but I could not find a connection to Martin Landau. And I did find this story on Wikipedia that I don't quite understand the point of, but it says actor Garrett Wang remembers Les Landau directing them for the Star Trek Voyager episode The Shoot. And while he was trying to focus on acting, the other actors in the series were around Landau making a ruckus. The reason was they had just started having actors direct in that television series, and his co-star McNeil had just directed the previous episode.
Okay.
That was his first time directing, and the other actors were excited about getting into directing. I'm not quite sure how the story directly relates to Les Landau, but I guess, McNeil was like, hey, I just directed. Isn't that cool? And Les Landau was like, yeah, good job. Or something.
Good for you, guy.
And Garrett Wang was like, can we get back to acting now? Anyway.
Never.
Anyway, recap. In a station log, which I feel like are getting more common, Sisko tells us that some Federation ambassadors are visiting to gawk at the wormhole. Fortunately, I have just the officer to take them off my hands, he says. Cut to Dr. Bashir, sitting in Quarks, clearly having a miserable time dealing with the ambassadors. Whom I shall call Whiny Lady Ambassador.
Yep.
Pompous Bolian Ambassador.
Sure.
And Vulcan Ambassador, played by the guy who ate Ross's sandwich.
I love that Sisko understands that Bashir needs this kind of crap work, despite being the chief medical officer of the entire station.
So no, we're totally on board. We're like, yeah.
But it's just he deserves this kind of thing. And honestly, if you didn't give him a job, he would try to shove his way in there somehow anyway.
He's like, I got to be in this episode.
Yeah, you gotta Sisko. You need to steer him where you want him to be, so it works out.
Well, see, my thinking was, it's possibly the biggest missed opportunity in storytelling that they didn't do a Bashir and Lwaxana Troi battling perverts episode.
Yeah, okay.
But Sisko's like, no. We gotta isolate Bashir far away from the rest of this episode.
So before we even get into it, just the conceit of this episode, or the concept that we start with, is that these ambassadors have shown up for a fact-finding mission to the wormhole. So they're not going through the wormhole. They came to look at the wormhole and get facts about it.
Clearly they're abusing their positions for a vacation to go look at the cool wormhole.
Okay.
That's what I got out of it.
Okay. I'll buy that.
Did you have a different read on it?
Well, no, I was just like, what are we doing? Like, you could have come up with so many other things to claim than, like, a fact-finding mission to the wormhole. Like, there's entire science teams at the wormhole. They can tell you stuff that you want to know. If they were like, oh, well, there's a big meeting with this delegation from the Gamma Quadrant, or even they're here because, you know, they're looking at Bajor's possibility of being admitted to the Federation at some point. There's all sorts of things you could say, but what they go for is a fact-finding mission to the wormhole.
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly bogus. At no point do any of these ambassadors attempt to find any facts.
No.
And in fact, Deanna Troi doesn't do anything remotely official while she's here. I mean, this is clearly a scam.
Yeah, she's not even with I don't know that we ever see her with the other three. Like, they're in Quarks at the same time, but they're not together when this thing starts because she's gambling and the other three are complaining at Bashir about various things.
But yes, anyway, so, as we've already spoiled, there's a surprise fourth ambassador at the Dabo table. Deanna Troi. And there's trouble. Some no-gooder has stolen her priceless brooch in the family for 36 generations, she claims.
Her Latinum brooch.
Oh yeah, so, and once again, bringing up the material science of Latinum, but we won't get into this.
Yeah, right.
Enter Odo in full Sherlock Holmes mode. He quickly locates the brooch and drags away the perpetrator.
Which, let's talk about for a second. What a horrible pickpocket this guy is.
He stole like a Federation comm badge.
Yes, the first thing that Odo pulls out of his pocket is a comm badge. One of the things that not only will the person who was wearing it, but every other uniformed person around will immediately notice it's missing, and is the thing that can be tracked, that they use to track you. It's like, I'm going to take one of these. This is bound to be worth a bunch. Like, what are you going to do with that? Yeah. Those can be replicated, I'm sure. So why are you stealing it?
Maybe he's a klepto or something. He's got a problem.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I like Odo's big Sherlock Holmes. It's like, well, you said that you can't read Ferengis, and this guy is a distant relative of Ferengi. So I figured maybe he's the guilty party.
Yeah, it'd be a much better Sherlock Holmes moment if we knew beforehand that the two species are related. It's like when he's hiding secret, the only piece of information that is relevant, it's like, oh, okay, I guess if you say so.
I'm not sure we ever see these, like, other guys again. And, like, how are they a distant cousin of the Ferengi? Do they live on a planet near the Ferengi, or...
That's actually a fair question. Yeah, it's hold on, we're gonna look up to see if there's more information about these Dopterians.
I almost guarantee there's not, unless there's like a novel where they visit the Dopterian homeworld or something.
Okay, so let's see. It's apparently they show up in another Deep Space Nine episode.
Okay.
I don't know that there's anything beyond that. Okay, well,
all right.
I feel like in Next Generation, it's brought up that, like, the Ferengi have 4-lobed brains, and that's why they can't be telepathically scanned. So my thought was like, oh, he's going to see another species with, like, one of these 4-lobed brains, which presumably is the case. But instead of mentioning that, it's just like, oh yeah, they're related to the Ferengi, kind of. I
am pretty sure that was mentioned at some point in this 4-lobed brains thing. Like, wasn't that kind of called back in Babel also?
Oh, it might have been.
Like, it was speculated that's why Quark and Rom aren't affected by the virus.
I don't remember, but yeah, that would make sense. Maybe. As I recall, we made fun of the fact that Quark was just like, no, Ferengi immune systems are just really great.
Oh, yeah. It was like they barely tried to explain it.
Yeah.
So, we gotta keep an eye out for if they ever call back to this amazing Ferengi immune system.
Yeah.
Which I doubt. Anyway, meanwhile, back in Ops, O'Brien is at his wit's end dealing with the uncooperative station computer, to the point where he thinks it needs a complete rebuild. Sisko doesn't see what the big deal is, but tells O'Brien, do what you gotta do.
I love how pouty O'Brien gets when Sisko's like, I mean, it seems to be working fine. O'Brien's like, you don't understand. And then it's just like, never mind. No, fine. I won't fix it.
Sisko's like, just look, okay, whatever.
No, do what you gotta do, man. It's fine.
Then Bashir and the ambassadors, minus Troi, show up at Ops to check things out, much to Sisko's irritation. They are able to witness a mysterious probe come through the wormhole. Sisko orders O'Brien to link up with it and download any info they can find, like, hey, look at this thumb drive I found. Let's plug it into our computer and see what happens.
Yep.
Lwaxana shows up in Odo's office and makes an extremely, and I mean extremely, aggressive pass at him. Odo makes a lame excuse to leave, then goes to complain to Sisko, who's like, what's the problem? Get you some.
Yeah, he does say something like that. Okay, so here is where the 90s gender double standard is really shining in this episode, where because Sisko goes on a little bit later to describe a very similar situation where, like, when he was a young officer, a male ambassador or VIP of some kind was basically trying to force his romantic intentions on a young female ensign who was not happy about it, and so Sisko punches him out. And now we reverse the situation where it's like, Odo's like, look, I'm really uncomfortable with the way that she's acting, and I don't want to create like a diplomatic incident. And the first thing Sisko says is, well, why don't you just do it? And then when Odo says no, Sisko's like, well, I don't know, figure it out. And Odo's like, but I mean, I'm not good at this. I'm not comfortable, and I don't want to, like, she's an important ambassador. And Sisko's like, yeah, so don't make a diplomatic incident, but you handle it yourself.
That's a good point. Yeah, like, I think the Sisko we know would, like, call her into his office and be like, hey, look, you're welcome on our station, but, like, please do not harass my staff. Like, I stand behind them.
Yeah, and I could see how if it was a more, like, equal, like, if it's just two of your officers and there's not this, like, really huge power disparity, then you're like, well, I'm not going to get involved in, like, relationship issues between two of my officers unless it's going to interfere with the work or whatever. Yeah. But this is, like, here's a VIP, and here's Odo trying to be like, I don't want to, cause a big problem because this person is so important. And Sisko's like, I don't know, figure it out.
Yeah.
I feel like Picard would not handle things this way. But then again, Picard is deeply familiar with how uncomfortable Lwaxana's advances can make you. So
yeah, I don't think Picard could handle the situation with Lwaxana. He'd be like, you must stop this instant, and she'd be like, oh, come on, Picard.
It's true.
He'd be like, this is outrageous. She's like, outrageously romantic or something. I don't know. But yeah, you're right. That totally doesn't ring true as a character moment for Sisko. Especially, like, we've seen him, like, in the past, taking sexual harassment really seriously. So, this is, yeah, you're right. Anyway, Odo tries to sneak back to his office, but is intercepted by Lwaxana, who invites him to a picnic in a holosuite program.
In a scene that is very, very reminiscent of a similar one on Next Generation, where Picard steps out of, I don't know if it was a room or a holodeck, or a turbo lift, but he's looking around very scared, and then Lwaxana just jumps out of nowhere, basically.
She's perfected this art.
Yep.
I also love the idea of, like, Quark being just so giddy, like, putting together a picnic basket for Odo and Lwaxana for use in the holodeck.
I didn't even think about that, but yes, Quark would probably love this.
Because he says, like, you told Quark about this, and she makes some comment, I forgot what it was, that makes it sound like he was very amused or something.
Oh, but thinking about it, you skipped over, I think, maybe my favorite bit of the ambassadors, where Bashir very begrudgingly takes them up to Ops as this probe is being discovered, and they're all like... The woman is once again complaining about her quarters, and Sisko's like, yeah, I'm busy. And then, but my favorite bit is when the Vulcan, like, Jadzia is like, oh, I've never seen this, like, circuit layout before. And the Vulcan guy's like, obviously that young girl does not have enough experience to know what she's doing. And I should go and help. And Bashir's like, yeah, she has 300 years of experience.
I mean, she's 300 years old. We don't know if she has 300 years experience studying alien probes, but anyway.
Yeah, that's fair. But
it's pretty unlogical for a Vulcan to, like, see a young woman and assume she has no experience.
But yeah, like a young woman who is clearly in a position of trust working on this like station. So yeah, I agree. It's a little odd.
Yep, he's a bad Vulcan.
He's a Romulan spy.
Yeah. At first I was like, is that guy a Romulan? Because they kind of dressed him, I felt, a little Romulan-y, but he must be a Vulcan.
He's kind of colorful. I see what you mean, yeah. And got the big shoulder pads.
Yeah, his clothes, like, and he has, like, that ornate, I don't know, it just looked kind of Romulan to me, but... Anyway, Odo uses the old, I have to be anywhere else but right here excuse, and jumps right back in the turbo lift. But the crafty Loxana just jumps in with him. Odo tries to give her a cold, hard reality check about the practicalities of what she wants, stopping just short of saying, I don't have sex organs. But he does remind her and us that every 16 hours he has to turn into a liquid.
Well, and I love his whole thing. It was like, look, you're trying about a picnic. This isn't a real mouth. Like, right. This is a fake mouth. I don't have an esophagus. I don't digest food. None of that. So what are we doing?
It's like, take this to its logical conclusion here. Like, what do you think I have going on under these pants? So you think I, like, make a fake, you know what, just for the fun of it all the time? Like, no.
Hey, she's very interested in the idea of being with a shapeshifter. So I think maybe she's thought about in detail what could be going on.
I mean, and then, like, this just also brings up the point that Odo, while I'm sure he can perform, I don't know if he has the physiology to enjoy it the way a human would. Anyway.
Yeah, best not get to that.
Yeah, suddenly the turbo lift jams. Odo calls it into ops, and they try to beam the two out, but transporters aren't working either. Oh, and the edges of the turbo lift are electrified, so don't even think about trying to shapeshift out.
Which, that's a ridiculous... let's put that in there to stop Odo from escaping this situation.
It's like, yeah, that'll do, say the writers.
In what world does it make sense to have, like, a live electric current running through the sides of this especially because it's open in the front, unlike the turbo lifts, unlike the Enterprise were. So just anybody could be reaching out there, touching that wall.
Well, even if it's not electrified, like, the thing is moving by so fast, like, you're gonna, like, lose an arm or something if you, like, accidentally trip or whatever. But, you know, Cardassian design, I think they complained about Cardassian design, like, 43 times in this episode as a plot device.
Well, but it's also weird because while he's complaining about the Cardassian computer, it's, like, a Federation interface, and so it's, like... It shuts down what he's trying to do because it's, like, exceeded safety standards set or whatever. And he's like, oh, damn Cardassians. And I was like, I don't know that I buy that that's a Cardassian problem as opposed to, like, your interface problem.
That's a good point. Stuck in the turbo lift, Loxana regales Odo with her version of the Next Generation episode, Menage a Troi.
Yep, where she makes it very explicit that, yes, she did bang that Ferengi.
Yeah. She goes into maybe too much detail for Odo. Meanwhile, Bashir complains about his ambassador babysitting assignment. Sisko is like, haha, gotcha.
It's like, yep, all junior officers have to go through this. I mean, I'm not going to make Dax do it, but...
Yeah. Well, it's like, if I was Bashir, the very first thing I'd be like, wait, if this is just you getting back at Dax, why don't you make Dax babysit the ambassadors?
Wouldn't that have made so much more sense to literally turn the tables? But he's like, no, I like her. You suck.
And then I can hang out with Loxana, and then Odo can take the day off. Sisko goes out of his office to check on O'Brien, who is weirded out by the computer's sudden agreeableness, and suspects that the various problems around the station are caused by the computer trying to get attention. In a self-feeding flurry of wild speculation based on very limited facts, the officers decide that they must have accidentally downloaded some kind of computer lifeform puppy. O'Brien suggests that they try uploading the puppy back to the probe so it'll stop messing with their computer. Is that how computers work? Wonders the audience. Back in the turbo lift, Odo shares the extremely depressing details of his upbringing with Loxana, who listens with empathy. He also warns her that he's close to having to melt. In Ops, the crew do some techno stuff to try to fix the computer, in a scene clearly intended as an homage to 2001: A Space Odyssey. This somehow results in a fire explosion in the hallway where Bashir and the ambassadors are. Bashir tries to activate the emergency door override, but is too weak to pull the lever.
Yeah, it
Remember,
sounds right.
This is the guy who famously punched a guy and knocked himself down.
Yep.
O'Brien tries to figure out why whatever they were trying to do didn't work. Carrying the puppy metaphor way beyond reasonableness, he decides the puppy was shut up in the probe for too long and is now desperate for attention.
Yeah, see, I had the exact same reaction when they're like, oh, and this is like this happens to a puppy. And I'm like, wait.
Yeah.
Like, you've gone so far down this puppy road when it's not literally a puppy.
That puppy thing was so tenuous to begin with. Like, but now it's just full on, like, no, it's a computer puppy.
Yeah, and at the end of the story, it's like, I decided to keep him, and I'll take care of him, we're honest. And I'm just like, wow, okay.
As a solution, he tries to build a computer doghouse for the computer puppy. In the turbo lift, Odo is getting really melty and is too embarrassed to let Loxana see. She puts him at ease by taking off her wig. Odo melts, and she catches him in her dress. Which, okay, I swear I remember that a part of the stakes of this episode was that if he melted, he would touch the edges of the elevator and electrocute himself, and possibly her.
I don't think that is stated. I feel like that is a logical conclusion to draw when it's like, you can't leave the turbo lift. It's like, I'm going to melt into a puddle. You're like, oh, well, the puddle would leak over I don't think anyone ever says that, though.
I mean, there's a line that's just delivered with such weight, which is when Kira says, if he doesn't get back to his pail in time, which is such a weird line. First of all, it is delivered with such gravitas. I'm like, what? What will happen if he doesn't get back to his pail in time? Soon O'Brien has his computer doghouse working and the computer puppy living happily in there or something. All systems are back online and the crew are able to rescue Bashir and the ambassadors, who are saved by Bashir's quick-thinking plan of cramming everyone into the nearest plasma conduit. Odo and Troi get off the elevator, having bonded over the experience, it seems. O'Brien decides to just let this unknown, unstudied alien entity from across the galaxy continue living in their computer system because someone compared it to a puppy earlier. The end.
Man, I sure hope that comes back at some point.
I kind of don't. It's like the when Moriarty comes back. Although they hadn't trapped him when he came back at that point. They just turned him off.
Right. They didn't realize that wouldn't be sufficient.
Yep. So it's like, oh, the puppy evolved into like a super intelligent, menacing AI creature who is now like wants to destroy all life in the galaxy. That would have been a fun episode, maybe.
I mean, the thing was already intelligent enough to like recognize that it liked O'Brien and that when O'Brien left, it like if it broke something, O'Brien would come back. And apparently to know how to like, break various systems. Like I feel like it's already at an intelligence point that I'm like, so we're really just going to like trap it in there and be like, oh, I'll keep it entertained or whatever, as opposed to, trying to communicate with the life form, which is, once again, what we would do on The Next Generation is, like, we have to find a way to communicate with this intelligent life and stop it from destroying the ship, because that happened, like, 5 times on The Next Generation.
Right.
So...
Yeah. So, okay, here's my general summary of this episode. We have 3 stories. Bashir and the Ambassadors, which I would describe as mildly amusing.
Sure.
Computer Puppy, which I would describe as utterly nonsensical.
Yeah.
And Odo and Loxana stuck in an elevator, which I would describe as executed as well as that premise can be.
Sure. I'll give you all 3 of those descriptions. Yeah. So I like what... Not necessarily the way that we got... I've never liked Loxana Troi to start with. Like, she is not my favorite character, and she's... If I was going to pick a recurring character from The Next Generation to show up here, it would not be her. But, that being said, she is the perfect character for what they're trying to do, which is to kind of develop Odo by forcing him out of his shell. Because he's not going to go out and make friends. The only way you're going to have Odo make a friend is if someone forces themselves on him to be his friend.
That's a good point. Like, yeah, the only way he will tell about his horrible backstory is if he is trapped in an elevator with someone.
Yeah.
And someone who has especially good empathy powers.
Well, and someone who's unwilling to sit quiet. I love that bit where he's like, I'd really rather just stand here quietly. And she's like, okay. And then she's like, I don't think I can do that, man. I'm sorry.
It's not going to happen. I'm sorry.
Which is remarkably like self-aware of her.
Yeah. Okay, so I just watched this movie called Magic from 1978, where Anthony Hopkins plays a ventriloquist.
Yeah, we talked about this last time, didn't we?
We didn't talk about it on recording.
Oh, okay. Was it after? Gotcha.
But so there's a scene. So he's a ventriloquist, and he's basically gone crazy, and like his like dummy character is now just basically a full-on alternate personality of his or whatever.
Okay.
So there's a scene where like his agent comes to visit him, and his agent's like, dude, you need help. You need to like go to a mental hospital or whatever.
Sure.
And Anthony Hopkins is like, no, I don't. And then the agent is like, okay, tell you what. It's like, if you can make the doll not talk for 5 minutes, I'll forget the whole thing and we'll just pretend it never happened. And Anthony Hopkins puts the doll down. He's like, okay, sure, whatever. And they're just going to sit there looking at each other. And then, like, Anthony Hopkins keeps asking, like, how much time has passed. And then it's like, it gets to, like, 2.5 minutes. And Anthony Hopkins is like, I got to tell you something. I'm not going to make it. And the agent's like, yeah, I thought so. And he, like, picks up the doll and starts having the doll talk again. So it reminded me a lot of that scene when she's like, yeah, it's not going to happen. Sorry. So you can be quiet, but I have to talk.
Yeah. And I like the way that she handles that, because this is not her doing what she's been doing up till now and like forcing things on him. It's her being like, I'm sorry, I can't do what you want. You can do whatever you want. Like, if you want to just stand there and ignore me, not say anything, fine. I gotta talk. So, and he's like, yeah. And then apparently they spend a very long time with her talking and him only vaguely even sort of paying attention. And she doesn't object at all. She's just going for it. Just like she said she would.
Yep. And then that other time I screwed the Frankie guy, and then like Odo's like, just like staring at the wall.
And he's like, I wonder just how much electric current is going through that.
Yeah, sorry, Odo. The writers told us it's too much. You can't do it.
I also like that we get something you don't often get in Star Trek is, like, he's talking to Kira over the comm badge and says, like, oh, no, I wouldn't leave. And Loxana goes, yeah, I wouldn't be polite. And Kira overhears that. And it's like, wait, what was that?
Yeah, that was funny. It was like, yeah, because it wouldn't be polite. That's the reason I wouldn't do that.
And I like when Odo clarifies, Kira's just like, okay, understood. As if, that's a completely normal thing.
Yep. I don't know. Cute little episode. I'll say it wasn't as bad as I remember it being.
Yeah, I think that's where I am too. Like, we went into this and I was like, oh, it's like the Deanna Troi episode. Yeah. But like, when we're watching through this time, I'm evaluating episodes differently than I probably have before and thinking about them more. So as I was getting into this, and I'm getting to those Loxana scenes and they're in the elevator, I'm like, this is actually doing some good stuff for Odo's character.
Yeah.
Like, if I didn't know Odo from having seen the whole series already, this is like some new ground that he's breaking. And that's a good thing for an episode to be doing, is what we've decided up to this point.
I mean, just the premise is just annoying. I just hate stuff where I just think it's such lazy writing sometimes when it's like two characters get stuck in an elevator, or two characters get stuck somewhere. You know, it's like two characters are forced to be friends, which it can work, but I feel like usually it just annoys me. We
saw that in The Storyteller when like Bashir and O'Brien are going on that trip, and it didn't work great there. And they seem to acknowledge almost at the end of the episode that it didn't really work, because they're just like, no, we'll go back to the status quo.
Yeah. But I mean, I feel like the beats were played out pretty nicely, and kind of like, like we said, Lwaxana is the right character to do this to Odo with.
Yeah.
Someone who's, like, intensely interested in him and can, like, crowbar her way into his, like, backstory or whatever.
And honestly, if it had been a new character who was doing the same thing, it wouldn't have worked as well as this character that we already know from previous stories. So it makes good sense. I just don't like her. So
yeah. Well, it's like I always feel like I want to like her, but I can't think of a time when I've ever actually liked like an episode she
makes
was
it
in.
hard to like her.
So,
and I agree about the Bashir story where it's like, this is vaguely amusing. Like, it's kind of funny. The ambassadors managed to be sort of amusing, and it's funny because we have not liked Bashir at all up to this point. To see him like Cisco kind of sticks it to him, and these ambassadors are just like constantly on him, and I'm like, okay, this is fun. We don't like Bashir, so it's fun to see like bad things happen to Bashir.
I feel like the writers have kind of picked up on what they created with Bashir up to this point, and they're like they delight in torturing him as much as we enjoy seeing him tortured.
Which is why the ending is almost a disappointment, where they're like, "Oh, we like you now, Julian. You're the best," and I'm like, "Is he really though? Okay, whatever."
Those ambassadors are going to forget him 5 seconds after they leave the station, though. He's not getting that commendation.
I do like Cisco's point. He's like, hey, you never know when it might help to know some ambassadors in your career. Which, that's.
Yeah.
I mean, Curzon was like an ambassador or something, right? And that worked out real well for Cisco.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was an ambassador, slept with the general's wife or whatever.
I have trouble understanding the Cisco Curzon relationship because in this one it's clearly, if not outright stated, it is heavily implied that Curzon gave him orders to do stuff, and I'm like, but Curzon wasn't Starfleet. How is he giving you so were you like his aide assigned by Starfleet to help the ambassador, or I don't know what's happening.
I thought Curzon was in Starfleet. Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't think that is the impression that we've gotten, but I could be wrong also.
Yeah.
Maybe I will look this up.
I've always just worked under that assumption.
Try not to future spoil or anything, but let's try to find out about Curzon Dax. 7th host of the Sibba lived past his 100th birthday. He was a top ambassador of the Federation in the late 2280s and the 2290s.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess Cisco just must have been his aide or something like that. Huh. I don't know why I always assumed, like, he was in Starfleet. But anyway, good to learn.
Yeah.
And he lived to be over 100. Like, how long was Dax in him?
That's a good question. I wonder if it says, let's see, when did you
become...
Because
Dax is only, like, 300 years old, right? So it seems like he spent most of his life in Curzon. Or her life.
Joined in 2286, died 2367. So that's like 80 years, yeah.
Wow. So yeah, that's got to be a big part of his.
Yeah, no joke. I didn't realize.
Yeah. Let's see what else we got here. You have any other notes?
Let me see. I don't think so.
We can jump into ratings then if you want.
Yeah, we can do that.
All right. What would you rate it?
I think I'm going to give it... I feel slightly positive about it. So I guess I will give it the Lieutenant Commander.
Sure.
And... hold on, I have to look up now what other ones I've Lieutenant Commandered.
Emissary, Vortex, Q-less, and Progress.
Okay, so I would say... I'm going to put it... Ooh, maybe... above Progress, but below Q-less.
I think that's fair for Q to beat Lwaxana Troi.
Yeah.
In the battle of the next generation
co-stars. Yeah. That's what it was coming down to in my brain. I'm like, which appearance did I like better between these two?
Forsaken. What a bad title for this episode.
Some of these episodes are, I mean, we talked about how I didn't like Vortex when we got to that title. So there've been some odd
times. At least there was a vortex in that episode. I mean, this is just like so weak. It's like, yeah, it's like maybe that puppy is Foresaken. We don't know. I mean, they made that all up in their heads, so
I'm not even sure which of these stories gets like the more screen time that you'd call it the A story versus the other.
I think the computer puppy has to be considered the A story because it's the one that affects the station the most.
So yeah, that I was just thinking that's probably what the title is trying to reference.
Yeah,
that's the A story. So
yeah, I definitely think that's what the title is meaning to reference. So here's my thing. I think I'm just gonna give it a lieutenant.
Okay.
Because even though this is so hard when it's so close to the line, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like it comes down to rewatchability. Well, I don't know. You know what? I am going to give it a Lieutenant Commander.
It's so on the line.
Yeah. Just because that Trapped in the Elevator story is surprisingly watchable.
Mm-hmm.
Some amusing Bashir stuff. And the puppy, the computer puppy, where you're just constantly like, what are you guys talking about? Yeah, so I think I will. And in fact, I might even put it above Babel and below Q-less.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah, that's where it's going. Because like I said, all I could remember was that stuck elevator thing, and I was like, I don't want to watch this. It was like, it's okay, it's kind of competent. Like, who are they? Don Carlos Dunaway, Michael Pillar, and Jim Trombetta did an okay job.
Yeah, not bad.
Story. And Les Landau, he's just a Star Trek pro, it seems like. He knows how to direct a Star Trek episode.
It does seem that way, yeah.
Okay, so here's my question that I had the whole episode, that I've had for a while, really. Because I was looking up Majel Barrett.
Yeah. Roddenberry. And her acting credits. She's, she's an old Star Trek pro.
Right. And she's the voice of the computer.
Yep.
But, so, okay. Well, let me actually pull this up. Because I feel like sometimes she's the voice of the computer and sometimes she's not.
I think since Next Generation, through Next Generation through Voyager, I think she was always the voice of the computer.
Okay, so she's... Okay, yeah, computer voice. She has... How many is this? 33 Deep Space Nine episode credits. And her credit is Federation computer or computer voice.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go on there, on the Deep Space Nine, there's another computer voice... Cardassian computer.
Oh, well, that would make sense. The voice would be different, yeah.
For 49 episodes. So I'm like, when are they doing the Cardassian computer and when are they doing the Federation computer? And it's like, sometimes they're credited in the same episode as the computer voice. So...
Let's see what we can find out about this.
Although a lot of these on IMDb say voice uncredited, for especially in the first, I guess, 3 seasons.
What's the person's name?
Judy Durand.
Judy Durand. Oh, the voice of Space Dock in Star Trek III, The Search for Spock.
Oh, wow.
The computer voice for Cardassian facilities, such as Terok Nor and Deep Space Nine. Interesting. Okay. So maybe the computer on Deep Space Nine has this other voice. I didn't realize. And so like, when they get on a runabout or something, does it switch? Yeah, probably. Or later on, other ships that show up. That's interesting.
Because it's like, it's like you look in the pilot, Judy Durand is credited, it says uncredited Cardassian computer voice, and then, but Majel Barrett is credited as Federation computer voice, so, or is she even credited? Yeah, she's uncredited a lot too.
It makes sense, because there's probably a lot of episodes where there's like one line or something, and it's they don't put in the credits, or they could even be reusing, normal computer bits from other episodes.
That's true too. Yeah, like half of her credits are also uncredited, so
there's probably some sort of like, it has to be at least this, or I'm sure there's a requirement that's like, once you hit this point, it has to be credited, and if you don't, then it's not.
Yeah. some weird Hollywood rule.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's very weird to me. But I guess, shows attention to detail. Maybe I can't tell the difference between the two voices. So
I have never looked before, so now I'm going to, like, next time. Hold on, maybe I'm going to pull up, because we know they're talking to the computer in this episode, so I'm going to go and listen to it and see if I can.
The Cardassian computer.
Yeah, the Cardassian computer, exactly. We're gonna see if I can hear the difference here. It makes sense that that person would have way more credits in Deep Space Nine, because this is where you're going to hear the computer most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't want the scene with the ambassadors. I don't care about her quarters.
Her bed with the gargoyles on it.
Yeah, that was so weird. I'm like, when have we ever seen a bed like that? Man, that's... Okay.
I mean, okay, I think when she does when Majel Barrett does the computer voice,
yeah,
it always sounds like she has like a slight regional accent, but like, I only notice it sometimes, like maybe a little New Yorkie or something. I'm
gonna have to listen to them back to back now. Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. There's definitely a kind of a little something in there, a
little bit of uniqueness.
Yeah. And
something.
This Cardassian computer sounds more like blah.
Yeah, more like you'd expect a computer to sound.
Yep.
So
that's fascinating. Okay.
But I don't know if that's just because like it's two different people, or
right. Yeah, I'm sure it's just they're different.
Little variations in
their different approaches to the role. I'm sure. Something that this reminded me of, looking at this that I'd forgotten, is we get a lot of time with this the Bajoran, like O'Brien's Bajoran assistant in this episode. Like, we get this new named character who gets a lot of lines and screen time, and I kept thinking, does something happen with her? Like, is she gonna die? Is she gonna turn out to be evil, or what? But I think this is the only appearance of her.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering, it's like, what's going on? Like, I wonder if they were just trying to set up, like, a regular person for O'Brien to boss around, like, a nurse chapel for O'Brien or whatever.
Yeah.
Because, O'Brien can't just be doing everything himself. So it would be nice if they had, just kind of like a recurring character that you could, like, order to do stuff while he has to do other stuff or something. But
yep.
If she never comes back, I guess they abandoned that idea.
He definitely needs some staff. Well, and according, I was just reading in the wiki that apparently they brought her in with the intention of having her play a role in, like, a different episode. I think it may be the season finale. And then they decided not to. And then somebody else shows up in the season finale and does what she was going to do. So
kind of reminds me of, what was that guy's name? Lieutenant Premin?
Oh, yeah. That guy who shows up for like 2 episodes and sucks and then is gone.
He showed up for 1 episode, then was just kind of like still hanging around in the next episode.
Like being an idiot.
He was gone.
And then he was gone. Yep. Good times.
So I'm pretty sure he was fired from.
Yeah, that was my
extreme incompetence.
When like the whole senior staff goes missing, and he's just like, "Oh yeah, it must have been a crazy night, huh?" And Odo like dresses him down. I was like, "Oh, he's fired now."
Yeah. It's like, as soon as Cisco gets back, he's like, okay, where is that guy? He's like, okay, you need to leave now. Go back to wherever you were 3 weeks ago.
Because, apparently he came from really far away, as I recall, for like that one job, and then he's just hanging around.
Yeah. It's like, your Duridium shipment expertise is no longer required.
Yep.
He was probably just like staying there, just like hanging out at Quark's all the time. Like, getting drunk and being in the holosuites. And Cisco's like, wait, do you actually officially work here? And he's like, I'll go now.
Oh, right. I have a job.
Or like his real commander called the station and is like, is Lieutenant Prim in there?
Okay, I have to say this because I was looking at some of the people in the guest star list in the wiki. And just see if, there was anybody else who's like a multi-appearer or who I'd heard of. So, like, I was looking at Judy Durand as the Cardassian computer voice. And just a little bit below that on the list is someone named April Rossi. And she is an uncredited co-star playing the Qatarian space hooker.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't remember that from this episode. It says it's a display graphic, so I guess there's a sign somewhere.
Huh. It's like Qatarian space hooker for hire.
I'm just like, wow, okay.
Is she in multiple episodes, you say?
Well, that I don't know. Hold on. Let's see if let's see if maybe she's like a poster in Odo's office or something, in which case she might appear several times.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so she appeared as a Qatarian space hooker in Star Trek The Next Generation episode Unification Part 2. According to the call sheet, which identified her as space hooker, she filmed her scenes. Her continuity photo was later used on a wanted poster in a number of episodes of Deep Space Nine.
Oh, that's cool.
Wow, okay.
So it's like they had this picture laying around that was like, hey, what's this? I don't know, put it on Odo's, like, wanted board or whatever.
That's crazy. Oh, man, I guess there's a whole bunch of stuff on Odo's wanted board. Because then there's a section called Unknown Performers. And there's several things listed under there as display graphics. There's a buck-toothed alien criminal, a Ferengi criminal, a Klingon criminal, Tixiplik.
It's like that Mr. Mixapitalik.
I don't know. Green-skinned alien with beaked face. That's not a display graphic. I guess that was some.
Yeah. No, I definitely noticed that guy.
The Dopterian thief, it says, is unknown performer. So, like, the guy who gets actual screen time doesn't get, like, his name in the credits?
Huh.
That's crazy.
Maybe, well, I mean, he didn't have any lines, so...
Okay, so Tixiplik was a miner who appeared along with fellow alien miners on the Enterprise D when he was picked up after being stranded on a planet.
What episode was that?
Oh, that's The Perfect Mate with the girl who, like, becomes whatever you want. And so he's one of the guys who is, like, partying in the 10 Forward when she shows up and gets into trouble. Yeah, okay.
Interesting. I just keep looking at this Antonio Banderas movie ad that IMDb is making me look at.
Oh, what's he in now?
The Enforcer. Some guardians aren't angels.
I feel like I've seen that tagline. I don't. The movie name doesn't sound familiar off the top of my head.
And there's just a picture of Antonio Banderas holding a gun, and I guess he's in Miami or something.
I haven't seen him in anything in a while. I wonder what he's been up to. Wow, The Enforcer does not have good ratings on IMDb.
Yeah, just the fact that you can click the banner that says "Watch Now."
Oh yeah, that can't be a good sign, huh?
You can watch now through IMDb.
An enforcer has to sacrifice everything to save a young girl he has befriended from his femme fatale boss who is involved in cyber sex trafficking.
Wow.
How do you I don't understand how
cyber sex?
Yeah, I don't know how that trafficking works.
I guess they enslave them and make this, but they don't, like, they just, like, put them in a booth or something and make them do stuff on camera.
Oh, so apparently he is Miami's top mob enforcer, but he sacrifices it when he finds out his boss is doing this thing.
Mm-hmm. Wow, what a novel concept. I feel like I've seen that story 40 times before.
Really? With the cyber sex trafficking?
Not that part,
okay.
But it's like, I'm here to watch over you. Now I'm here to protect you.
Oh, I guess he did just make that, like, new, I almost said Cat in the Hat, that new Puss in Boots movie.
Oh, nice.
I was like, where, oh, and he was in that, the Robert Downey Jr. Doolittle movie, which was also horrible. Oh, and the Uncharted film, that's right, he's that bad guy in the Uncharted film. Okay, so he's been in stuff that I've seen recently, I just forgot completely.
Oh, yeah. Boy, that movie's forgettable.
Yep. Oh, apparently he's going to be in the new Indiana Jones movie.
For a movie with 2 ships being carried with helicopters that are firing cannons at each other, that's a really forgettable movie.
I started watching it again the other day because it was just on Netflix and I was looking for something randomly to watch. And then, like, I got halfway through and I was like, oh yeah, no, I remember this movie. It's, I'll do something else now.
It's like the secret keys in the Papa John's pizza.
There's so much. I love those games. And the characters were actually not terrible in the movie. I feel like there was so much potential that they wasted by just having it be some generic, like, treasure hunt action movie when it could have been much more interesting.
Yeah. I don't know, I never played the games, but it was like, this is kind of like a waste of Tom Holland.
Yeah. Papa John's, that was a good...
Yeah.
That was ridiculous and fun.
We have to protect the Krispy Kreme.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, it sounds like we're done talking about the episode.
Yeah, we've moved into very, very different things than talking about this episode.
So, if you've made it this far, thank you for listening. Be sure to check out the description, where I occasionally put links to interesting things. I'm Fletcher. About to say goodbye is Data.
Bye.
May you all outsmart the hunters for one more day, and if not, die with honor. But either way, please remember to drop by anytime you're feeling homesick.
Oh, wait. I just came up with an alternate title.
Okay.
The origin of Odo's hairstyle.
Hairstyle origins, Odo.
Yeah. It's like that's the big reveal that we get is where he got his hairstyle.
Yep. That's the most important moment of the episode.
Okay.
Does he shapeshift individual little hair strands? I imagine that's not fun, but
He seems used to it.